This is season 3 of Whatever She's Having with Linda Hoffner,
Claire Summa Dewaria.
and we're here to talk about being fearless, showing up for ourselves, and being a champion for other women's success.
Hmm.
What are we
What a-
talking about today?
What a great topic. Community.
Oh, our favorite topic.
That's like my middle name. I mean, I don't have
Yeah.
a middle name, I guess.
Do you really not have a middle name?
I don't have a middle name. Well,
Okay, what is?
do I okay, so I mean, people know my name's Claire Summa Dewaria, right? But I'm Chinese. None of that is even Chinese.
Sumandawiria isn't?
No, that's Indonesian. That's Indonesian last name. So none of my actually born birth Chinese name is in that name at all.
Oh my God.
Yes.
Well, what's the word for community in Chinese?
It's oh my gosh, there's so many words for community in Chinese. In Chinese, community, it could be like 团队, it could be 社团. It's like in Chinese language, because I think there is a lot of the same word sounds the same but meaning so many different words. There's like thousands of characters. So for one meaning, there could be like 10 different ways to say it.
Really?
Yeah, it's like there's so many different ways to say it. And so like the Chinese language is very poetic. So when you describe, for example, the way you describe something like really clear and wide and clean, so you say it's so wide and clear and clean like the snow.
Oh,
So we
interesting.
don't, yeah, and then so we describe something, or you say your hair is so black and beautiful. It's almost like the what's black and beautiful, shiny? I mean, I don't know, sesame is shiny, but it's like it's very descriptive.
Okay.
And then so it's like that's why I think that people think that like Chinese is actually a language that's really hard to learn, because you could know the basic, but if you want to be a really great writer,
right.
you have to go really in depth. And then if you want to read about things, it'll be really harder. But community, I think in Chinese, there's always a common words of there's a square outside the word. So it doesn't matter. Yeah. So it literally means like there's a square, and then inside it's tuan. It's like community. So what it means is inside of the circle, there's all these different skill sets and these like talents. That's why it's called community. That one word describes it. Like, so when you look at it, it's like you're circling all the talents and knowledge into one square and then one container, basically. That's community.
That's beautiful.
Thank
I think
you.
we should give you the middle name of community in Chinese.
Okay. All right. Then maybe I'll
Go back
do
and
that.
put it on your birth certificate,
All right.
okay?
All right. I will do that. Passport update.
Yeah, passport update.
Yeah.
I love that though. And I think, I'm curious to hear your perspective on community because you belong to different communities,
Yeah.
right? And what that has meant in your life as having, a Chinese community, an American community, and obviously many others outside of that.
Yeah.
But like being a dual citizen, like, do you feel supported in different ways by those different communities?
I think I believe yes. There's different ways because there's different cultures, and then there's different cultures, rituals, histories from different communities, and also I think also there's different traumas as well involved with that. So the support, the understanding could be very different. So I think that the way I'm feeling supported is when I can be respected and understand where they're coming from, and also trying to always learn more about what the community's value, the mission, the core is about. And also there's a lot of very clear spoken values. There's also hidden values that's cultural, right? And that we don't understand. And then so it's never good to be assuming, thinking like, oh, I'm Chinese, I should know these things. But not necessary. And I think that asking a lot of questions about the community and also just listen more, which is over time, as I'm getting older and I'm trying to learn way more, just like talk less and listen more, because it's so valuable. And then when people have something they can willing to share with you, it means they really trust you. And that is the foundation of any kind of community. If they can share their concerns with you, not just on the good things they've been doing, and it has to be the challenges they're facing, or even they're willing to ask for help. And I think that's really big. And I think I feel like that is the foundation of any community, that we're willing to, we proactively want to to listen, and also they trust us enough to tell us like what do they need, and then how can we improve better.
So how did you find community when you first came to Bellevue and you were, you know,
Uh-huh.
remind me how old you were.
Well, I was 12. I
Yeah,
was
that's
12.
what I was going to say.
I didn't.
You were your son's age, right?
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
Right?
exactly.
And so
Yeah.
how did you find community
Yeah.
coming to a new country and a new city?
You know, I didn't.
Yeah.
And it was really hard for me. And I would say, like, when I first moved to this country, I was 12. And then, you know, I spoke English because in Shanghai, we do
Yeah.
learn language. It's a very metropolitan city. But because I think that it was really funny because in China, in Shanghai, the way we learn English actually is taught by British
Oh,
teachers.
yeah.
So I had an accent. Imagine this
Oh my
this
gosh.
little girl from China who speaks English with a
With a
British
British
accent,
accent?
and then like calling like rubbish and tomato, and then people like I was bullied so bad because
Oh,
I mean because they were like, who is this person, you know? Um, but I think that I feel like maybe that also built some sense level of resilience to me because I felt that even though there is maybe this misunderstanding of who I am, but there's always like really open room for me to try to express myself better and to kind of like not really defend myself, but just express me in a way that let other people understand why am I like this. And I think it makes it more clear that, you know, if I want to be part of a community, then I should sometimes we have to put ourselves out there a little
yeah.
bit, kind of be brave about it. And then if there's people don't really I think didn't understand it, maybe that shouldn't be my peer for the moment, maybe
Yeah.
because I'm not strong enough to be there yet.
Do you think that's what drove you to be such a community champion? Is that you didn't feel
Yes.
like you had it?
Yeah, I agree. And I feel like I didn't really belong. I didn't
Yeah.
really belong to any
Which when you're
groups.
12, that's all you want.
Yeah, and
Is to belong.
oh my goodness, it was so hard. You want to dress like everybody else,
Mhm.
right? You want to like talk like everybody else. So it was like I remember I was so determined that I don't want to have any Chinese accent, any British accent left. That by end of my first school year, that I'll be talk like every kid. So literally practice every day at school, like nonstop. I was just watching TV, reading, and then making sure that like I can erase all my identity to be conformed to the way that people would accept me, right? And now when you think about it, it's kind of silly because right now I love people who have accents. It's so
Yeah.
beautiful because it's who we are. And nobody's accent exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah, it's like who we are. But I remember when I was younger, I tried really, really hard to do that, trying to erase that so I can be somebody else that's more acceptable, I think.
When did you feel like you had built your own community and that it was a safe space for you?
Definitely with Belden.
Yeah.
I think with Belden, I have to say, like, you know, before Belden, I had other corporate jobs, and I believe that with Belden, it's something I found that I built a community that purely is on the meaning of kindness, and then also the inclusivity of our community, and then because we want to welcome everybody into the space, and we want to make sure that everybody feel welcome. Also, they always have their own voice to share. That's really important. And I think I remember the first time we have this customer, he didn't really like the way one of the menu setting we had on the board on the metal board. He actually emailed me and he told me like, "Hey, this looks really like a teriyaki shop. It looks horrible." And then I was like,
There's your feedback.
yeah, there's my feedback. And then, you know, first I was like, huh, really? I just spent a lot of money on that. And then looking, I was like, you know what? Like, that's a great feedback because he actually really cared about Weldon. He has like this pure ownership about what he want to tell me, right? And then I think that moment, it's like really early on when we first opened it, maybe like less than 3 months when he said it. And he was a customer, literally showed up like every other day on the dot, buying coffee and buying like things here and there. But it's like, it's at that moment I was like, you know, I believe that we have something really amazing here. Because I think if somebody can be
Right, 'cause
very
he cared
openly,
enough, right?
caring enough that ownership and then wanting to share his concern with me in a very honest way, I think we did something right.
Yeah. And now, what are you? How many years later?
7 years.
7 years later?
Yeah.
What are you most proud of in the community that you've created at Belden?
Definitely, it's still the community.
Yeah.
You know, the relationships,
Yeah.
the openness that we can share our needs to support each other, and then the needs just be existing together. our team is always there for each other. Doesn't matter what, like, what's happening. We are always there to support. And my team is made with people, I would say, like, probably around the world. And then people who are like me, a first generation immigrants, or people who grew up here, and then but they are marginalized group. It could be different areas that they need extra support of. But I think that's something like I'm really proud of. It's just like the relationship we have built from the business.
Yeah. And I love that because you literally created your own community and you were like, I'm just going to create a space that welcomes people, and knowing your past and your history of not feeling that, I think that actually bleeds so much more into the beauty of Belden and the meaning behind why it was created. And I think it's really interesting to think about how our need for community changes throughout our life, right? In the different stages that we're in. Even friendships, right? Like, they're super important when we're young, right? We all want to have those friends and be in circles where we can go to birthday parties and all the things that our kids now are feeling that need for community, right? Like, it starts at a very young age. And then we kind of become young adults, and then our roles and responsibilities shift, right? And then it's, part of your community is also your family and the structure of how that's built, right? But both you and I have been married and divorced, right? And so that changes, and the support, right? Because part of what's beautiful about a community is that there's support there, and there's a safety in that support. Yeah. And when one of the communities you might be in is no longer or is weakened, it's there's a sense of like panic that sets in about, well, what do I do with when I don't have this any longer? And then we kind of evolve and change and maybe find a new community, right? That welcomes us and accepts us.
Well, we have a friend, Jeremy, you know his famous thing. He's always saying, like, if he can find something you like, you build it yourself.
You build it yourself. Yeah.
That's just like, that's how we feel. I mean, even with this podcast, right? Yeah. Like, I am really sure there's amazing podcasts out there about friendship, but I think this is something for us that's uniquely made from between like me and you, and then with our friendship, and then what we want to showcase to uplift others together as a community. So it's something very unique. And then, we going out there and then do the things we have no idea if we're doing right or wrong, like technology, anything, promoting ourselves, speaking from like hundreds of people, like last year, right? Like,
no, that was this year. Earlier this year.
Can you believe how time goes by so fast?
I know. It's insane.
Yeah. 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 What is community meaning to you?
I think as I was thinking about this topic and thinking about the various communities in my life and how they've each played a different role, I think it's like we talk about in Leadership Eastside. There are like mini containers that we find ourselves in, and they create a sense of security that allows us to explore our authentic selves and what is underneath the surface for us, right, as individuals. And sometimes you find out that the community is not one you want to be a part of in that process, right? Like, I was part of the Mormon community. And in the phase of my life where I needed that, when I was coming out of my mom and my stepdad's separation, that community of my family felt weakened and torn apart. Yeah. And I sought a new community, which was very welcoming and nurturing in the Mormon church. And it really fed that part of my soul that needed nurturing. And I really wanted to have my own family. And so I got married very young and had my son very young, and quickly realized after a couple years that that community no longer fed the need, and that I wasn't fully invested in that community in the way that they wanted me to be, right? In the religious beliefs part of it. I loved the beautiful part of the nurturing and the welcoming and the family component, but there were many things that just didn't align with who I was discovering I was. And so leaving that community was hard, because leaving any community, I think, can be very challenging, good and bad, right? And so I think about like the other communities that entered my life in different phases and different places, and then, you know, really starting to get involved in the Bellevue community. And that started as me entering the Mrs. Washington pageant and becoming Mrs. Bellevue and being like, I should probably really know my city if I'm going to do this, right?
Yes.
And so then I all of a sudden found myself immersed in Bellevue, and which is where I lived, and it was eye-opening to see the different facets of that community that I had never interacted with before, and the different nonprofits, and even just the different neighborhoods within Bellevue. So to me, it's just there's so many different communities that we're a part of. And I love what you were sharing about the Chinese definition of that, because I really do think it's meant to be a place that does bring out the best of what's inside of it, right?
Yes. And it's like all the things we bring together, and then also, like, you know, maybe when we share the failures together as a community, then we can learn together as well, right? That's like so crucial. Yeah.
Failures, as we learned in Leadership Eastside, is again a part of the feedback cycle, right? Like is learning from what did we not do well, and what do we want to continue forward with, and how do we evolve from things that we've tried and have failed in.
And having that, like, I guess, like the safety container, right? The gracious space, what we talk about so many times with our team members and our fellow cohort colleagues. And I think it's just like, I feel like it's just it's really a holistic way to thinking about how you can expand that container and adding and sharing things, and then also invite others to be part of it too. Because I mean, community could be anyone. It could be anywhere. Right. And then we can meet anybody on the plane, anybody, and then you can start building it. Who knows?
Yeah.
Yes.
But I also think it's important to know that you can't expect the community to just give and give and give without giving back. Right. Yeah. It's so important to put into the community what you want to get out of it, and really kind of understand what the community needs and what you need out of the community, and be able to have that conversation. And you know, I think that's what is so beautiful about our friendship is we know what we need from each other and what we're looking for from the work that we're doing together, from just a pure like girlfriend standpoint of like, I just need somebody to vent to. I just need,
that's always nice.
You know, I would need to like talk parenting shop and make sure I'm not losing my mind about what my kids are doing. But it's that safety net.
What do you think? What do you think is the three most important characteristic of a healthy community?
Oh, well, I think a healthy community definitely involves one where people are invested in it, right? Like they are a part of the change process, right? Whether it's voting, whether it's community service, you know, within that community, like they are invested in the outcome of what the community is going to be. Strong leaders. Diverse leaders, right? It's not just one voice, it's many voices who have unique perspectives to bring to that community. And then I think a non-judgment, like really, if you say you're a place that is welcoming, then be a place that is welcoming and not judgmental or cliquish, right? That it's truly a place where anyone can come and feel accepted and welcome. How about you?
I'm really close to like along the line what you thinking, right? I'm thinking more about like we have a healthy community, and then like after that, like what do we do to nurture that?
Yeah.
And then what do we do if we don't? Like what if there's like a crack on that? Like what do we do to like mend that, right? I feel like I think in community it's gonna inevitable something's gonna happen like that. And also I think friendship as well too. Sometimes I think there's like miscommunication or misunderstanding of something. Or sometimes I feel like maybe there's like, one party and one somebody from the community maybe feel embarrassed to ask for help because there's many it could be any other reasons it's happening. So I think that like, the authenticity is really important. The proactiveness of meet where the community is super important.
Yeah.
Me, like lately I've been like super like even more involved with like more community projects like on the Seattle side, and then the King County side. And then I think that like the overall the understanding of what I'm seeing is a lot of times like there's so many resources out there for different communities, but it's not created for the community.
Yeah.
It's created from a policy perspective. It's created from what I think is good for the community. It's not what the community needed. Like if you think about it, if you create a process, a program that's supporting small business owners, that require the small business owner to drive 20 minutes from their business and then come to your office to get support, that's a failure right there. Who has the time to drive 40 minutes with a round trip to just get maybe like how to apply for a $5,000 loan or whatever it is, or maybe like an application form for us to understand how to apply for this insurance. Something could be very small and then could be done from home. So I think that a community, like another element that's really important to have, like nurturing the health of the community, is be very adaptive, right? Be very adaptive and very flexible, and then just get outside of our boxes and then trying to listen better, and then knowing like what works for them, not what you think is going to work. That's so important. And then that's like something that I think not easy to do, but working with others together is going to make it so much more productive and then make it more possible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we're trying to do that at the Bellevue Chamber.
Yeah.
Is really meeting our small businesses where they're at.
Yes. And it's doing a great. Yeah.
Okay.
Should we wrap up today?
We're going to wrap up because I love this quote by Coretta Scott King, which says, "The greatness of a community is most accurately measured by the compassionate actions of its members." And I think that really sums up how you can measure success of a community. Is what are the people within it giving back?
Yes. Yeah. This is beautiful. It's perfect.
Okay.
Well, see you next time then.
Next time.